I am an Amsterdam-based Dutch artist who uniquely combines art and philosophy. I do not philosophize about art, but produce projects in which art and philosophy are entirely integrated and reinforce one another. I studied fine art at Aki Academy of Art and Design in Enschede and read philosophy at the University of Amsterdam, where I obtained a PhD for merging philosophical insights with my artwork in project Do Not Erase and publication Remodeling Reality. In this presentation, Split, Remodel, Repeat, I want to ask what exactly the relationship is between art, science, and philosophy nowadays. How new is this idea of research within the arts? In order to shed some light on these questions, I will take up my latest project 0 Point as an example. Project 0 Point consists of multiple series of photographic images, exhibitions, lectures, and articles in which the nature of reality is examined from various angles. In this online presentation, next to my talking head, you can enjoy some of the picture works that will be included in a publication. I will show why and how the title of the project was chosen, why the ideas of theoretical physicist David Bohm were leading, and how they influenced the artistic outcome. In our days, the mindset is shifting towards a more systematized and technological reality, asking from artists to engage in scientific and philosophical developments, as well as from scientists and philosophers to take a closer look at the ways in which artists work. Showing you how I have taken up this cultural shift is therefore the main aim of this presentation. I will end my talk with the conclusion that we do not so much remodel modernism as reality itself. For me, art as well as philosophy are about bringing something to consciousness in such a way that they enable us to gain insight into the interdependency of the individual, society, and nature. For this reason, my inquiries are triggered by questions rather than answers. State-of-the-art questions about the autonomy of the individual, the rules and methods we use to shape our lives, our subjective and collective memories. During my PhD research, I formulated a working method I call installation package, a cluster of site-specific installations, performance, photography and text in which the same concept is elaborated from various points of view. Often the use of objects like pictures, ghost curtains, boxes or newspapers are an encouragement to the viewer to meditate and contemplate. On other occasions, local inhabitants, scholars or passers-by are asked to participate. But at all times, the inquiries circle like a package tour one specific concept. For instance, in Package Rhine, I focused for more than 2 years on the concept of life quality, choosing 4 different stations, Schaffhausen, Strasbourg, Cologne and Rotterdam, to work for some time. Or the concept meaning, which was examined in Package Do Not Erase. As a consequence, it may take several years to complete such a package, considering not only the results, but also the processes that lead to the results. Allow me to elaborate on this working method by highlighting Project 0 Point I'm working on since 2020 as part of my investigation into the nature of reality. What fascinates me as a visual artist as well as a philosopher is the concept of measurability, the boundaries between fixed and fluid, between sharp and vague, between colored and non-colored, between love and hate. I would ask myself, when does one state of affairs turn into the other? When is something still measurable? And is it important for something to be measurable at all? Trying to shed light on these questions, I merge photography with philosophy and theoretical considerations from physics. First, from the artistic point of view, a single glass was taken as a starting point for transformational processes in which photographic images were changed into 38 multi-layered compositions distributed over 4 series. To be understood as pictorial spaces that are variable and subject to change in an experimental, unconscious method of choice, inspiration, and demolition. The results of split, remodel, and repeat invite the viewer to explore and contemplate the notions of space and time as a dimension in which meaning remains something definitely unfinished, but in which measurability is crucial. After all, when there's nothing to hold on to, you have to choose a point of departure from which you can reorganize your life. Second, from the theoretical point of view, the work of David Bohm is leading, with his research into the underlying meanings concerned quantum theory. As a theoretical physicist, he was one of the founders of quantum physics who worked under Oppenheimer on the Manhattan Project and collaborated at Princeton with Einstein. In an attempt to combine relativity and quantum theory, he discusses in his book Wholeness and the Implicate Order in what ways reality lies beyond appearances. There is a hidden regime of reality, Bohm says, that is and always will be inaccessible to us. From this deeper order he calls the implicate order, the ordinary notions appear in the explicate order, that is the world as we know and experience it with our senses. The model for this proposed implicate order is not based on things considered as objects or phenomena in the Cartesian space-time order, but rather a lens-like flowing of simultaneously enfolding and unfolding dimensions between the implicate and the explicate order. Bohm's concept of hidden variables operates at the boundary of space-time. I quote, "We come to a certain length at which the measurement of space and time becomes totally indefinable. Beyond this, the whole notion of space and time as we know it would fade out into something that is at present unspecifiable. So, it would be reasonable to suppose, at least provisionally, that this is the shortest wavelength that should be considered as contributing to the zero-point energy of space. When this length is estimated, it turns out to be about 10 to the minus 33 centimeters. This is much shorter than anything thus far probed in physical experiments, which have gone down to about 10 to the minus 17 centimeters or so. If one computes the amount of energy that would be in 1 cubic centimeter of space with the shortest possible wavelength, it turns out to be very far beyond the total energy of all the matter in the known universe." End quote. David Bohm called this calculation the zero-point energy for a point of space. Here, he predicts, will be found a boundary separating an outer explicate order. Third, from the perspective of human beings, it is important to mention that they are made up of, but also dependent on, their ability to recognize patterns based on similar differences and different similarities. First, perceptually, unguided, we recognize patterns in the blots on a brick wall or a wallpaper. Leonardo da Vinci already pointed at this faculty as a starting point for all art. Secondly, as an attempt to make human knowledge measurable through information, that is, every amount of data, code, or text that can be preserved, sent, received, or manipulated in any medium. Consider, for example, the mathematical numbers and proportions that can be grasped by the mind. Plato stated that these abstractions were of a higher order than the phenomena. According to him, the senses merely produce opinions, whereas the abstractions deliver certain, that is, true and perfect knowledge. In later times, this idea was refuted, and certainty was exchanged for probability. We have now reached the point at which we are slowly coming to understand that true knowledge means insight. insights that are neither true nor false, but continuously illuminate different aspects of specific regions or frameworks. By consequence, we will never reach crystal clear conclusions. Allow me to step back and relate all these findings to personal experience. Already at a very young age, I was fascinated by the patterns to be detected on the medallion wallpaper of my aunt. At that time, we spent our summer holidays with a reformed family who were living on the south coast of the Netherlands. There was only beach and sea and family members. No newspaper, nor any radio or television set. Bored stiff, I began to use the small camera my father had bought me as a possibility to escape the somewhat restricted atmosphere. Catching the various patterns on the wallpaper on camera, whether distorted or not, made me invent all sorts of landscapes, faces, ghostly suggestions, and the stories that came with them. It is no coincidence, then, that later in life, my favorite medium to work with as an artist became photography. More specifically, the digital patterns that make up for the images. This is the main reason why I call my photographic work picture works, not questioning the image as we perceive it in documentaries, reports, or events, but investigating how an image may appear to us. As a consequence, no single decision is conclusive, but understood as part of a series of clear and explicit quantum decisions. In this conception, the ideas of the photographer are intrinsically tied up with the hardwired, pre-programmed information inside the camera, amounting in a joint venture to the final results. By consequence, the picture works are not representations, but rather the energy of an unseen and unknown world in which the camera acts as a concentrated point of view, concentrated point of consciousness, trying to locate the unknown in a reciprocal poetic resonance between the explicit structures of the ordinary world and the implicit processes of the human soul. In the dynamics between the explicit and the implicit, just like between the seeing and the thinking, picture works, whether they are presented as a single work of art, a choice sequence, or an installation, are not a point of view, but a field of perception and cognition that tries to connect us with the deeper levels of life, the big unanswerable questions, the mysteries. From this, then, photography is understood as a reflexive and analytic philosophical medium. The picture works originate in images taken from everyday reality and used as raw material to be transformed into works of art that seek to touch upon the viewer's infinite number of subtle feelings. I want to close my presentation by going back to the questions I began this presentation with. What exactly is the relationship between art, science, and philosophy? And how new is this idea of research within the arts? Did we really drift away from the classical model of art? Or do artists merely mirror the world they are living in through their work? Artists, scientists, philosophers, and every other human being for that matter, take whatever they need to get their ideas across. They have always done that all the way throughout history. But it is the way in which this has been done that has changed over time. In our days, a renewed interest can be detected in what one could call reality, the imploding of several societal systems with or without increasing the threat of violence, urges for a new humanistic approach. Paradoxically, the focus is shifting towards a more systematized and technologically driven reality. Every age must somehow form its own unity in the light of what it knows. Maybe we are on the verge of splitting, remodeling, and repeating our world, taking into consideration all that is happening today. In my view, then, we do not so much remodel modernism, but reality itself. I hope that I've been able to give you some insight into my practice as a philosophizing artist. Thank you all for listening.